Hi everyone, so we've got Matt Reid here. We just kind of, decided thought it'd be quite useful and quite interesting just to do a bit of a chat with him, chatting him through his background in sport and also leading into kind of a race he's just done recently with the Triple Brutal, and then last year's also Double Brutal, and I guess just looking at what the things are that got him to that point, why he chose to do that, and then his background in what led him to that. I think knowing that sometimes is quite an interesting view into it, because I think we always only ever see the outcome, the race, the results, and not necessarily the 10 years of kind of working or different things that took to get there and his own background. And I think that's the unique story that we all have, our own individual ones for doing endurance sport. So yeah, we'll kind of go into, just let Matt introduce himself, a little bit about himself, and we'll go from there.
For those who don't know me, my name's Matt Reid, as Kevin said. Kevin's asked me to come in, as he said, just to chat about the Triple Brutal and what led up to that, and hopefully motivate people to look past what they think their limitations are, maybe.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. So yeah, we've got a bit of an agenda on the stuff we want to cover, but I look at this more of it's a conversation, as if we were having a normal conversation, hopefully with less profanity than we maybe normally would. But yeah, have a conversation on the experience and go from there. So I guess let's start right at the beginning before we get into the kind of events that we know you for. Maybe what inspired you to kind of embark on kind of endurance triathlete? I mean, for Matt, for people who maybe don't know Matt, once upon a time Matt was 135 kilos, so he's certainly kind of taken a long route to get there. He didn't come from a sporting background. I think is something that's quite important to kind of show. It's that people think that, oh yeah, he's just a good endurance athlete. Now there's traits that Matt possessed that definitely helps him with that, but when you see where he started from to where he is now, it's quite an impressive kind of journey. So yeah, talk us through that.
No, as you say, I definitely didn't come from a sporting background. I was in the army as a youngster, which had an element of fitness and stuff, but I definitely enjoyed the social side of that more than the sporty side. So I quite liked to drink and smoke and eat everything I could get my hands on, which obviously led me, once I left the army, was to put on quite a lot of weight, which wasn't ideal. I did always, however, enjoy cycling, hill walking, just being out and about and being active.
Yeah.
But then it was difficult when you're kind of heavy to be active. But it didn't stop me from doing what I wanted to do, to be honest.
So yeah, saying there didn't come in a sports background, so it's kind of what kind of inspired that into, I guess first of all, what inspired that kind of initial goal to lose weight? Because I think when we lose weight, there has, for a lot of us, there's always, or for some people, there's a mechanism, a spark that kind of sets that ball moving, and for a lot of people, it's various things, as they want to raise money for charity, they're close to their heart, or it's just something in their mind that clicks. So I guess what was your kind of spark that?
Yeah, so my wife Terry, she has probably, well, most of you will know Terry. She wanted to go to Slimming World and lose a bit of weight, and she didn't want to go by herself. She didn't know anyone, so I said, "Oh, I'll go along with you and see how I get on." And I just enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process. I enjoyed seeing the results. Every week, dropping the weight and the discipline and being back in control of yourself, which was a major thing for me. I think sometimes it's easy to lose control of things, whether that's weight, whether that's stopping training for any reason. It's the what the hell effect, isn't it?
Yeah. You
miss one session and you go, oh, what the hell? Or you eat one pie or 2 pies or 10 pies, I might say, and you think, what the hell? But being back in control was a great feeling, and seeing that progress, feeling better about myself, feeling more confident. Even though I never had any real problems with the way I looked, or I didn't think I did at the time, I was a happy person. Losing weight and being more active, being able to cycle better, cycle more easily, being able to go in the hills more easily. It was just a nice process, and enjoyed doing it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I guess it's that kind of, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, how long did it take to, I think
it was quite quick for me. As they always say, it's easier for men to lose weight than women, unfortunately, for women. Yeah, I lost a lot of weight in about eight months.
Okay.
So I think I went from 120, 130 kilos, I think it was when I went, down to about 78 kilos in about 8 months, which was quite quick. People would say it's unsustainable.
Yeah.
but I don't think it is. I don't think you should maybe believe people when they say that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean that's like half your body weight.
Yeah, it was quite a transformation. I remember I went through a lot of work uniform at the time, constantly changing shirts. But,
yeah, so I guess so we're speaking about the kind of transformation there. So yeah, the pivotal moment was obviously kind of Terry kind of
definitely. Yeah.
So what was making you get into kind of multi-sport, so like triathlon? What was the kind of first?
So a friend of mine, Sean Murphy, he was always into triathlon, and I always saw him as being this super athlete. I didn't know anyone Sean is a super athlete, don't get me wrong. I did, I didn't really know anyone else in the sport. And me and Sean have been good friends. Sean and I have been good friends for many years, and he was the one that really pushed me. He was always taking me out on the bike when I was heavy. He's always suggesting these different events, different things we could do. Whether it was cycling, around the area, or cycling from coast to coast, or Land's End John O'Groats we did together. It was all these things that we did together. And he was in triathlon as well, and he said, and I'd lost quite a bit of weight, and he said, why don't you give triathlon a go? And I said, I don't know how to swim, Sean. I've no idea how to swim. I couldn't swim. And he said, well, he'd just done his level 1 coaching course, I think if I remember correctly. And he goes, well, I'll teach you how to swim. And I said, oh, that's great. So I went to the pool, and I couldn't do a length, literally couldn't do a length. And he persevered with me, and we worked through it, and I got swimming. So and that was it really, and I'd already done a few runs, done like Aviemore Half and some Newbury Beach Bash, some local 5 and 10Ks, done a few cycles, and did end up doing Turf Super Sprint, got there in the end, Turf Super Sprint, and that was fantastic. And Sean was on holiday at the time, and he'd just driven back that night. And he had about 2 hours sleep, and he came especially to Turf to see, to see me off and introduce me to the people he knew and everything. And it was just a great atmosphere. Everyone was so friendly, and it was really good fun. Yeah, it's a tough old event. Turf was especially when Steve Barrett in the brief said there was a super sprint that I was doing, which is sort of 400 metre swim, and he made the mistake of saying a 30 length swim or whatever it was. And I went white and cold with fear, thinking I had to swim more than my 16 lengths that I had planned, but obviously got it wrong. But yeah, it was tough, the hill coming out of transitions. Yeah, I always find it interesting with triathlon that we have a super sprint or a sprint triathlon is something that if you're pretty good will take you about an hour. Whereas if you're most average people, it's like anywhere up to 2 hours. Whereas if you go to speak to a runner or a swimmer, a sprint's like 30 seconds max. It's like literally, our swim takes longer than most sprint events, and a super sprint sounds like I think sometimes it almost puts people off as well because it sounds like a really fast race because it's like super sprinting. It's like, oh, it's going to be really fast people, but I guess it's like the try is often the one's used as well because it's that introduction to the sport. Well, I remember the newspaper article about the weekend. It said the sprint triathlon was so and so and so and so, and then the main event, the super sprint, was so and so and so and so. And I was like, oh, okay, that's very good. It just made me laugh at the main event. But,
So what was it like taking part in that first triathlon? You've said I guess triathlon is, in a lot of cases, the community around triathlon is generally very welcoming. I think I know that from personal experience, and having had conversations with lots of people, is like going to an event is less daunting once you're there. I think for a lot of people, you go there and you're worried because I think triathletes are perceived to be super fit. These specimens of people that all have 6 packs and they're all uber fit. Now there's plenty of them as well, but there's quite a big range of people. Matt was that first example of being a Turf, never done one, pooping his pants, having the thought of having to swim more than a few lengths at a time.
What was stand out on that, to be honest, was the levels. There was the guys in the red hot bikes with all the kit, who you were petrified to speak to and didn't want to look at, and then there was also the older people in the older age groups that were there on flat handlebar mountain bikes and just out to enjoy themselves. And I found that massively different to cycling and running events I'd done previously, where everyone's really at a standard that's fairly high, medium to high at a running and cycling event. But then with a triathlon, you've just got this massive range of people, and everyone's friendly. Well, 99% of people are friendly. There's it doesn't seem to. Well, I've never really come across much like elitism or anything like that.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to get on and encourage people, which is always nice.
Yeah. So then, what other events have you done? I guess before obviously the double, you didn't go straight from turf to the double.
No, I didn't. No, that would be a challenge. Well, I did the Aberdeenshire series, which was fantastic when it was on. I'm sure most of you had done a lot of the races, but it was just great to have something on your doorstep.
Yeah.
So I went through doing all them events, met more and more people, and you find out when you do these things that there's you think that the super sprint is the big event, and then you find out there's a sprint distance, that's double the distance, and then there's an Olympic distance as well, and you find out about all these different events. And I went round and did the series and the duathlons over winter, which were fantastic, and then looked, as everyone does, you look further afield. And I think it was the Starman in Aviemore.
Oh yeah.
When it was running, which was a great event, which is a shame it's not on anymore. I did it was the second year that I'd run. Sean and I went to do it, and it's talking about going at the deep end, not really swimming. The swim was in the dark. The swim started at midnight, but it was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. Raced it completely wrong. Went as hard as I possibly could on the bike, and then shuffled the way through the run. But it was fantastic, and a great event, a great experience, and it opened my eyes to going longer and longer. So obviously then you step up to Iron distance, full distance, and did the Castle series back at the Bastion down south, which was quite a small event, really good fun again. And then Keltman, then looked at Keltman, managed to get into Keltman eventually, and just the experience of being up in the hills in that sort of cross triathlon really sparked my enthusiasm. That and Starman, it's fantastic, a different atmosphere, different people doing it again, great fun. And then the next year I didn't get into Keltman, which I was annoyed about, so I thought, well, what am I going to do next? So what's better than Keltman, or what's harder than Keltman? And looked at the Brutal series down in Wales, and saw the double, which was on that year, and thought, double Ironman, what could possibly go wrong? So that was how I progressed through, to be honest.
Yeah, so we've gone from an Ironman being a hard challenge to then doing a double. So I guess in 2022, so not only did Matt compete in the double, he actually won it. But for anyone who doesn't kind of know distances, I guess put some context to it. So it's 7.6k swim, so 7,600 metre swim, a 224 mile bike, and then a 52 mile run, which, just because it's called the Brutal, they make you go up Snowdon and back down again at the start of the run, just to make sure your legs are sent to the shadow realm. So talk us through, I guess, preparation for that, kind of once you paid your money, entered the race, kind of what then happened.
So once I paid for the event, which is obviously the biggest decision you have to make as a triathlete, because there's always lots and lots of money, I came to you and said, this is what I'm going to do next year, and you said, you're an idiot, that's not possible.
Just Dad, I still think that.
Yeah, well, he's not wrong. So we looked at it, and we looked at what the distances were, where I was then, and where I could be in 11 months time, and what it would take, what it would mean. I remember mapping it on a big board. I took a picture of the board actually, and we mapped it all out. And that really, it seems quite daunting. The distances seem ludicrous, but when you actually map it out and it compartmentalizes it and makes it much more easier to manage mentally, and then you realise all you've got to do is follow the process. Yeah. And as I always liken it to an exam. You've got an exam at the end of the year, and you've got to revise throughout the year. You want to be sat in your exam, having done the most possible revision over that year, and know as much as you can about the subject you're about to sit. The worst thing you want to do, the last thing you want to do, is be sat in that exam thinking, I haven't done enough revision for this exam. Yeah. We've all done it. We all know how it feels. Also, 3 weeks before the exam, you also don't want to be sat there going, oh no, I need to cram in as much revision as I can to the exam. You want to really spread that out, and I've used that for quite a while in my own head, along with some other little things that I tell myself, just to even it out and keep you motivated all the way through the process.
Yeah, and I think there's the exam analogy. It's that that you can prepare the best you can, and you might still not pass. I think that's something
Definitely.
that kind of, I think we're all linear with triathletes on, like, it's pass or fail. I didn't achieve the times that I wanted to, and I think we almost need to break that down. And right, if you're, and I had a chat with someone who's recently coming back from an event, and it was how to deal with anxiety, and me and Matt had that conversation a little bit previously, and it was the way to handle that is that if you're on that start line and know that you've done the best you could, the rest is kind of irrelevant. It's then, right, okay, now you then need to go, when that gun goes, it's right, what's your race plan? Do you have a race plan? If not, I would suggest you make sure you have one before your event, in terms of, right, what are you focused on? Not times, because they're outcomes, it's the, right, what can I do in the swim? So how often am I sighting? What am I going to do if my goggles come off? All those little potential problems, it's more probably for the bike. What happens if I get a puncture? Having solutions for those problems are probably what's going to allow you to have a good race, even if it doesn't go to plan. Where I think, if you get to that day, you fail the exam, but you think, actually, I couldn't have done anything else leading into that, you then take stock of that and you can revise later and go and sit the exam again. There's not always going to be another exam that you can sit, or another opportunity to do the exam, so it's quite a good analogy with that. But I think one of the things we said when we first chatted is, like, having never coached someone to an event that takes, we were looking at, anything around 30 hours for a double Ironman is pretty good. When we're kind of mapping that out, right, what does that take? And it's like, I guess the first stuff that was being honest and saying, like, I don't know how we get here in a lot of cases, but I always think with whether it's sprint triathlon or triple Ironman, or I guess decas, hopefully we're not going there, it starts to get into the point, it's still a swim, bike, run. You still have to swim, you still have to cycle, you still have to run one after the other with gaps in between for transition. Now, obviously, the time to train and prepare for them is vastly different, and the training you do is vastly different, but it's still a swim, bike, run. And I think when you think of an event as it's just a swim, bike, run, I've done loads of swimming, I've done loads of biking, I've done loads of running. Now, obviously, provided you've trained relatively well, there's nothing else you need to worry about. It's just, right, focus on do what you can in the swim, focus on do what you can on the bike, focus on do what you can on the run. You might have to slow down, you might have to walk on the run, but it's still swim, bike, run. It's us, I think, that gives it the bigger, it's this important event because we've trained a year, 2 years, whatever for, or it's the World Championships, or it's a qualifier for an event. It's us that gives it that, this is more important. It's still a swim, bike, run. Just because they put a banner there that says it's a big event, or you've put the banner there to say it's a big event, it's still swim, bike, run. And I think if you think about events as that, it takes that, oh my god, I need to perform well here because it's this big event. So I think that's something that we kind of chat around. I think that's quite important for everyone as well, to not get too caught up in an event being a bigger stature. Yeah, so again, preparation, once we'd set the goal, once we'd mapped it out, kind of what we generally kind of focused on.
Well, a big part of the double was cycling. 200 and how far it was, 220 odd miles. That's another thing I tend not to do as well, is because the distances and anything, even iron distance, even half iron distance for some people, sprint going down, the distances seem unachievable and such a massive mountain. So I've stopped looking at distances because there's just no point. And unless you want to brag to your friends, which most of them don't understand if they're not into triathlon,
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
The distance is irrelevant. So anyway. Cycling was the biggest one, which I knew we had to work on, because the more cycle fit I was, the better the run would go. The less you have to work on the bike, the more you can put into the run, which in my opinion is, especially for longer distances, was one of the important sort of ingredients. So we did a lot of cycle volume. And swim volume, because it was further than I'd ever swam before. Obviously it's double iron distance. Iron distance is quite a long way to swim. You're a bit goosed after that. So we had to think really carefully about paces and about volume and about where training intensities, because it's not manageable to just beast yourself, for 10 months. We needed to really concentrate on that rest and build and then rest, taking steady weeks and hard weeks and high volume weeks. I enjoyed it though. I enjoyed the training. I really enjoyed the training. I think it was a good year weather-wise as well, which made a difference.
Yeah, you got nice summer.
A lot of the cycles I remember were in the nice weather. We did a lot of hill running. I did a lot of hill running with friends, which was great fun. For the double, I did Ironman UK as a sort of tester race.
I did, what was it, Solo 0.5?
Solo 0.5, which was
third at Solo 0.5, and then the week after, 8 days later, doing Ironman UK.
We did I supported Keltman. I did the Keltman run, full Keltman run.
Keltman run, yeah.
Then Solo 0.5 the weekend after, and then Ironman UK the weekend after that, which was a great event to do Ironman UK on quite tired legs.
Yeah.
Because I ran that at double pace.
Yeah.
Which actually wasn't far away from from my own pace, I did quite well in that race, and it was quite surprising, just winding right back on the run especially, and just saying, right, I'll walk every feed stop.
Yeah.
I'll steady run, and towards the end of the run, last lap of the run, I was passing loads of people.
Yeah.
You know, had overcooked it.
That's the endurance part of it.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I felt quite good off the back of it. And then from there, we started to raise the volume, lower the intensity. I remember, especially cycling and running, and we got there pretty fit. Yeah. Fit.
Yeah, and you were, was it just over 27 hours, I think, for the 27.05, if I remember right?
Yeah, 27.05. That's annoying. As anyone, I didn't have it. Well, my target was under 30 hours.
Yeah,
so I beat my target, but I'd made up a new target about 10 minutes before the end. It was I wanted under 27 hours, as we all do. But yeah, just over 27 hours. It was a great race. Really enjoyed it. It went so well. I think I came out of the swim first. The guy that came second was a pretty good cyclist, and he cycled really well. Well, he cycled better than me, and he came out off the bike before me. But he was from Holland, and I don't think he'd ever seen a hill in his life. So Callum and I went screaming past him on the way up Snowdon, and then managed to just keep him off on the flat section of the run. It was a really good race. It felt like a race. It felt like an Ironman race. That sort of intensity.
Yeah, it's just
you know, really good fun. Support team were absolutely on point. Anyone that doesn't know me, I speak so highly of everyone that helps me. My wife, the support team that supported me at Keltman, supported me at Brutal and the Double Brutal and the Triple Brutal. Absolutely insane. In my opinion, there's no way I could do what I do without that.
Yeah,
without that support, not
fair.
a chance.
We'll probably go into that just at the end. I think that's quite important. And I guess even if you are doing triathlon in general, just not necessarily these distances, but having a support network, whether that's your family, friends, partners, or clubs, I guess that it's probably quite a big thing, because you're going to get to a point where you actually don't want to train, you don't want to go to a session. At some point, sooner or later, I think if you have that club environment, that teammates, that kind of they can help motivate you, push you. Sometimes you just need someone to say the right thing to you, and your head's back in the game. And I think having that network is a lot of time. If you just train on your own all the time, it's quite hard to always keep motivated. And I think build your support network well. I think and everything else becomes kind of easy. So yeah, obviously we got to there. Anything from the double that maybe didn't go well?
Didn't go well on the double. Double was pretty good. There wasn't a lot of. I couldn't say much went wrong in the double. I must admit, I was lucky with the weather, lucky with the bike setup, you know, and having Johnny, the support was great on the bike, and I don't think much went badly on that race. If you'd have asked me the week after the race, I'd have probably took a big long list.
Well, that's always that.
But now looking back, I think it was a pretty good day all in all. 2 days.
Okay. So anything you took from the double before kind of setting into the triple?
Yeah, how hard it was, how hard the training was. The amount of training you have to do, the amount of sacrifice you have to make. You know, I work a full-time job. I work shifts, but I still work a 40-hour week. You know, I'm fortunate to have to work a lot of my time together, so I have quite big chunks of time off.
Yeah, that does definitely help.
But even that time off, you've still got to do the stuff that you've got to do being an adult, which I don't like doing that much, adulting. And I'm lucky to have Terry supporting me, and she understands when the volume does get high and you're doing nothing but training. Yeah. You're doing, long bike rides, long runs, you're not seeing much of your family, and you're having to give up a lot of things, a lot of trips away with friends and stuff. It's all sacrifice, isn't it? Yeah,
and I think there's it probably leads into the double and the triple, and to be honest, even long distance triathlon or long distance racing in general is like that, where I think because I think if you're just out there training all the time, and triathletes are really bad for that, and it's like we're so singular focus on, right, this is my big event, I need to train for it. But I think if you have work commitments, family commitments, other life things, having that discussion up front on when those big really intensive weeks are going to be, so when your race specific stuff, so if you're doing Ironman long distance bikes, when they are, generally in that kind of 3 to 4 months before the race, I think mapping, and to me that's why mapping out a plan over a year is really important. If you know when those the most important weeks are, where you really don't want to be missing too many things, if you know where they are, it's easier to negotiate with, right, where can I afford to lose some now but to gain later. And I think, as you say there, if your other half is supportive, if they're more likely to be supportive if they understand that you're going to be, right, at Saturday in June, most weeks you're going to be out doing 3, 4, 5, 6 hour bike rides, and you're going to get home and just want to fall asleep on the couch and have that, but it's only for 3-4 months, and then you get to the event and you've done everything you could. Whereas I think a lot of people don't do that well, and every week they're going out doing long bikes, starting early winter, and it just kind of grates gradually over time, and the other half can get quite annoyed. And I've had it with a few people where I've got the other half to come in and as part of a discussion on the plan, because they're a shareholder, they're important, they need to understand what the map looks like, is if they don't, their likelihood of there being a problem later, and going out on a bike ride after an argument because you've told them you're going out for 4 hours is not a good idea. It's not conducive to good training. You'd be better saying, right, sort the problem, right, I'll do something, I'll do less, but you want to negate that as best you can. So I think if you've got that discussion up front saying, look, right, over the winter I'm going to do these amount of hours, I can afford to move my training around or whatever, or maybe you need to get up earlier. If you generally don't have that time, you need to make that call, what's right for you. But I think if you get to the key phases, the June, July's, the kind of weeks before the race, and your partner is on side and is supportive, that they're happy you're going out for 4 hours. Some of them might throw you out the door just to get peace, but if they get you out the door 4 hours, they know what time you're roughly coming back. If they're on board, your team might be ready for you, or they might help you with those things rather than just be, right, you're home, right, let's go out and do some other stuff. And it reduces the likelihood of problems, having that up front. I mean, obviously the more supportive your other half is, the easier your journey is going to be. If they're not as supportive as you would like them to be, then you need to negotiate that on what's the best way to manage that, because at the same time they still want to do other things. They don't always see the value in that goal. So I think having that up front is sometimes more important than how much training you can do. I think getting them on side. So I think that's something that I would always advocate people get your other half somewhat on board and as part of your plan, rather than just launch into an intensive training block and hope that they're going to like what you're doing.
I think what's really important as well is not everyone thinks that I prioritise training over everything else because you do so much. Weeks leading in, months leading in, we're doing sort of 30+ hour weeks training, which is when you've got a full-time job, which is a lot of training. And people say, oh, you must prioritise that training over everything. Your wife must be absolutely fed up with you. She is fed up with me, don't get me wrong, not for that reason. But what I do is I don't prioritise my training. So when my wife asks me, what training you've got this weekend, I know there's a reason she's asking me that.
Yeah.
So the first thing I say back to her is, what have you got planned? What do you want to do? And I think that's important, because she'll then say, oh, nothing, no, what do you want to do? Well, I wanted to maybe go out for breakfast or to go out for, yeah, we'll do that. And it's being flexible with your training. If you're the sort of person that can't be flexible with your training, and I do my 4 hour ride on a Sunday, and I start at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I finish at midday, and then I do my long run afterwards, and that's the whole Sunday written off.
Yeah.
It's not sustainable if you've got a family, in my opinion.
Yeah. Because
it's eventually your family's just going to get sick of it, because the novelty wears off, and they just get sick of it. But I'm flexible with training, so sometimes I'm training late at night, sometimes I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to do my session. Because I prioritise, and I think that's, you'll have to ask Terry, but that's one of the reasons that it's sustainable, and I can do these events back to back, and I can train consistently throughout the year, if I'm not injured, because you're flexible, and you can meet friends, and you can move that stuff, and I think it's really important, because you do sacrifice so much with triathlon. We've all sacrificed so much with triathlon, so I think it's really important to try and claw as much as you can back, and that makes it sustainable, and that, in my opinion, brings your family on side. Obviously, if your family's completely against it, then we're probably going to do one Ironman and tick the box and go. But if you can maintain that flexibility and bring them into the plan, that's really important, I think, for sustainability within the sport.
Yeah, no, that's probably quite a good point, and I think it's not easy to do that. I think it's quite hard, but I think it comes back to its conversations, and not just like, and I've had it with a few people, it's not just having a conversation between a coach and an athlete, it's like, who are the other people that is involved in that, and sometimes even your work's quite important as that as well. It's like, is your work flexible and allowing you, say, maybe a little bit more leeway in terms of start times, finish times? Certainly for double, triple, the need for volume is exponentially higher, but I think Ironman's still it's still a very hard event to train for. It still needs commitment, and I've had it with a few people where it's like, right, if you want to do an Ironman, right, don't do it this year, do it next year. Build up that, certainly if you've not got a lot of experience in endurance sport, build up that accumulation of miles over the year, focus on some short distance stuff that you don't need to
and figure out what's best for you, what the way the training looks, the way the plan looks, what's best for you. Because like we've had this discussion before, people come and say, right, I want to do an Ironman, how many hours have you got to do? I can do 10 hours a week, or I can do 15 hours a week. But it takes quite a long time. It takes months and months to realise what's actually sustainable. And even now, when we have a discussion, we'll say, well, how do you want to, how does the volume, how are we going to build volume, and what does it look like 8 weeks out? And I'll say, well, I want to do 50 hours 8 weeks out because I did 30 hours last time and I want to increase. And then you look at that in reality, you try it and you realise that A, you haven't got enough time for anything, and B, you're absolutely goosed. So it takes, even when you've got quite a lot of experience relatively in managing your time and training, it still takes a while to figure out what works best for you. Training before work, training after work, training during work if you're lucky enough to be able to go out at lunch breaks and have a run. Working out what's best for you and how many hours is really feasible to do.
It's quite a good point as well. Obviously leading into, did the double, then banged your head again, decides you want to go and do another couple of laps down. The triple, basically the same course. So the advantage, I guess, of doing the double to the triple is you kind of know, you don't really know what to expect, I think, because it's still quite a bit longer, but you have a better understanding of what the course looks like, where the kind of technical parts on the bike, where the climb is on the bike. I mean, to be fair as well, it's not a flat bike course either. It's a hilly, tough bike course. Even doing the half or the standard brutal seems weird. The one brutal, the single brutal, is a hard Ironman, a hard day out, and you see that in the general times. It's not a fast course. I think if you go into the triple, just for context, so it's obviously you do another 3,800 metre swim, so that's 11,400 metre swim, 336 mile bike, and then a 78.6 mile run. Again, you still start the run with an ascent and descent of Snowdon. Just go through the kind of training leading into that. What do you think? What do you feel was different? What did we do maybe a bit differently? Did we do anything differently, do you think?
Well, we discussed that beforehand. I think we said when I signed up for the triple, I think we said to each other, well, to be honest, the intensity is probably going to be, the intensity and the paces are probably going to be quite similar between the two, because you're working at that constantly at that low zone 2, aerobic range. Really is, we're hopefully not looking to slow down much. We're looking to just build your endurance at that intensity. Build your endurance at that intensity. So we just did the same thing, didn't we? I think.
Yeah.
We did a lot more running. I did a backyard ultra, which was a really good event for psychological training. To given the option. I don't know if you know how backyard ultras work, but they're 4.16 mile loops, starting every hour on the hour, and it's just the last man standing. So you can either run it really fast and have half an hour rest, or you can run it really slow and have 3 minutes rest, or you can run it somewhere in between and have 15 minutes rest. It's up to you how you want to do it. People did it all different ways, and there was no recipe for success, apart from the guy who won it. He had a recipe for success. But there was a guy who came second, they call it the assist. He ran it as fast as he could every lap, and slept for 25 minutes at the end of every lap, and he did that for 31 hours. So anyway, but given the option to stop every hour, because you're only racing against yourself, I didn't have any preconceptions of winning. I didn't want to win. I didn't really have any targets. It'd been nice to run 100 miles, but what does that look like? How does that feel?
Yeah.
What does running for 24 hours feel like? Who knows? Well, I do now. So that was really good at training the mind, but the training up to that also worked, because doing a lot of loops around the house, around my local woods, and just battling loop after loop after loop in all different weathers, sometimes with people, a lot of time by myself, just understanding how my mind worked and what my triggers were for wanting to quit, you know, how my body felt, how I was going to work out, you know, leaving your nice warm house in the snow, you know, after 10-15 hours running, to go out and do another lap.
Yeah.
When Terry's just got home from work and she's making dinner, you know, it's all these things just to really battle. I think that's really important with endurance sport is just training the mind more than the body, you know, doing the loops. We decided to do loops quite early on, and that was really good because loops are pretty soul destroying, because you're always going past your house for hours and hours and hours, and you've always got that option to quit, so you're training your mind not to quit, and that's a fantastic thing to be able to do, or to be able to train, and it's an easy thing to be able to train relatively. It doesn't take all the kit, doesn't take going to Mallorca on training camps, doesn't take organising to go out on these rides and checking the weather and all this, where the wind's worse and which is a hilly route and which is not. You just go out and ride 10 loops, you know, and that's what you do. And you have food. You don't have to worry about nutrition because your food's at every stop.
There's definitely pros to it. I think I've said to a few people doing Ironman or even like short distance events, like doing like park your car somewhere and find a loop that's similar to like the course is quite useful. But I hate doing loops. It's like I need a circular loop that I'll
It does take the stress. It takes the stress out of the organisation though. So any excuse not to do it. I can't drive out to Balata or Bankley this weekend. You literally just leave it from your house. Oh, the weather's crap. I might get cold and wet. You can change your clothes every lap. You've got no excuses not to do it.
I guess there's always excuses to not to do it.
Sorry, you've got no reason.
You have to fight the
you have to
mind,
fight that
which
mind.
I think that's probably a good thing that I think we don't do enough of in reality, is that we just assume that, and it's so saying Mike Tyson is, nobody likes to be hurt. What is it, what is now? We're getting punched in the face.
No plan to survive. Punch in the face.
Yeah, and it's like that. It's like you think everything's going to go well until something doesn't go well, whether that's the weather changes, and then now I'm going to change my plan. And the loops are definitely one that, as I say, not many people can do that well. It is a tough mental thing, but for the event, it's definitely.
I think it's not fair to say not many people can do that well. Is maybe not many people are willing to do that well.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I think everyone's capable of doing it.
Yes,
it's just having the tenacity to do it. And everyone's capable. It's not
the urge to go.
Exactly.
4 laps is enough. When you wanted to do 10 or whatever. Anything kind of different leading into that thing other than, so we did the ultra. I guess the key thing we said coming out of that ultra was making sure that we don't come out with an injury. So it was like we did say we wanted to hit 100 miles, but not at the cost of 6 weeks of injury rehab. There was always a risk when you do an event like that, and I think even sometimes we're like that conversation with Matt, where it's like you need to almost like, not that you want to set a ripcord to pull that if you are having difficulties, because you want to go through that kind of, I guess, washing machine, but at the same time you want to make sure that you've got the right mindset to know, right, that's enough. Because the cost is certainly, when it's not the most important thing in the calendar, you've got to be careful with that as well.
Yeah, it's one thing I find hard about doing the long distance stuff is that you have to sacrifice doing the races, because the races, I think, get in the way, because you do want to do well naturally. You want to push as hard as you can. Nobody wants to go to a race and coast it.
I think that's the risk of it.
And we do it to race. That's why we do it. And to spend 2 years not really racing, it's kind of difficult. That's a downside of it, I must admit.
That was something we didn't talk through there with after Ironman leading into the double. That was something that we spoke about, like doing that. Although it was useful, it also came with a longer recovery period that we really want. Certainly with that kind of 3 week stint of run supported Keltman, which is a tough gig on its own. Keltman 0.5, which was a tough gig, and then Ironman UK is definitely a tough gig. All those kind of accumulation, it meant that we did have to back off for a few weeks, certainly in some of it. So I think we gained the experience
and knowing what it feels like to race on very tired legs.
So I guess talk us through the triple itself. I guess the couple of weeks leading into it, how are you feeling? Anything on your mind that you were unsure of, or? So
the triple cycling volume was hard in the training. It was, I think the longest ride I did was 17 hours of loops, and that was in a storm.
And it was like a through the night. Almost broke you there.
It did. I think I started at 8 o'clock in the afternoon in the evening, or something, or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and I finished at the next day at some point, and it was a howling storm all night, and it was brutal. It was hard, but I came off the bike and I did a run off the bike, and I felt really good on the run, and it was just enough to feel okay. I've got this, you know, and that confidence builder. I've done the revision, you know. I've got here, and I think I can do this, you know, with the support and with the taper. It'll be good. Tapered all right. I think in hindsight we haven't discussed this actually. We haven't had our post race.
Well, I just actually remember when you were saying I just laughed when I looked at it on Training Peaks. Was a brick. When you say a brick run, it's generally, in case anybody doesn't know, it's a run off the bike. And technically it was a run off the bike, but in Training Peaks it was his bike started on the Saturday or whatever it was, and then his run was on the next day. Which I thought, it's not very often you get someone doing a brick run the day after.
Yeah, it was pretty hard. And
then
the taper, I think in hindsight, I don't think the taper was long enough.
Yeah,
I think we should have, because the volume was so high leading up to it. I think I was still carrying fatigue.
Yeah.
It's always a balance, obviously, you know, and you don't want too long. But I think on an ultra event, you probably don't drop the fitness as quickly as you would do on like a half or something.
Yeah,
anyway, we can discuss that later.
No, it's okay. No, it's all good.
But I did feel, I must admit, when I was stood on the start line, or even when we were driving down, I felt quite tired, and that wasn't ideal. And I remember feeling quite fatigued, but nothing, nothing terrible. It was just a memory that I had, thinking, I don't feel like, you know how you do before a race when you do that little taper run, and then you feel like your legs aren't attached to your body, and you're like, this is on fire. I didn't quite feel like that coming up to the triple, I must admit.
Okay.
But that by the by, we got to the start line, and I was pretty petrified, to be honest. There was a lot of people there.
There was a good photo of him. Terry had sent me on race morning, and I was trying to smile, but
I tend not to like taking photographs pre-race because I always think it's a bit of a bad omen. And Terry took a photograph of me, and I looked like a little boy on his first day at school.
Probably the same you did when Steve Barrett told you were
very similar face to when Steve Barrett told me I was going to swim 750 metres.
And you were about to swim 11,400. It's only 11k more.
Yeah. But you know what? I just sat there and I thought, you know what? I've got 3 events to do. I've got a long swim, I've got a long bike, and I've got a long run. And I know what my paces are. I know what my strategy is, and I'll just go out and do them. And it calmed me down. You know, I knew I was capable of it. And I know, I know by now that my body is capable of doing insane things. It's I know I keep on going about this, but it's the mind that stops you. But it's so important. And I sort of felt pretty good in my head, pretty confident. I wanted to win, which I don't think is a great. It's a very difficult thing because you just don't know who's going to turn up, and then if you put that as a target, then you can only lose. Because obviously unless you win, and you're putting that extra pressure on yourself, which I think is a really hard thing to do, but. You've got to be honest with yourself. We had this discussion today as well. If you want to win an event, you've got to be honest with yourself at the beginning
as well. I think it's certainly for me when someone says like someone like that. I mean, they say triple's a bit different. It's quite niche in the sense, but it's like I want to win, or I want to do a certain time. Is how much of that do you actually have control over? The time is somewhat influential, but not directly. Certainly say when you throw Snowdon in when it's a technical run, it's hard to kind of correlate. Certainly with a bike, it's hard to correlate how fast you'll go relative to the kind of intensity of the power that you're using. But I think it's got to be right. The goal, if we do everything right, we think we're capable of winning. We're capable of achieving these times or these outcomes. But breaking that into what do I need to do? What am I focused on during the swim bike run is probably more important.
Yeah. No, it all went pretty well though. The swim was pretty good. I always set off nice and steady. I've never been a very good swimmer. I've never been a fast swimmer, and I just keep to my own pace. I know what I can maintain. But what I did almost chase somebody because we've all got different coloured caps, and the red caps were in the triple, and I could see this red cap getting further and further away from me, and I thought, oh no, that's it. And my head went up my bum a little bit, and I thought, oh, that's it. And then you start overthinking things, right? He's a good swimmer, he's going to be good on the bike, he's going to be good on the run. Am I going to chase this guy? But I just thought, no, you know what? It's a long day.
Yeah, long days.
Long race. Just stick to your plan. You just don't know what they're going to do, or you don't know who's there. So yeah. Swam the swim. Eventually caught the guy who'd overtaken me to start with. And the swim was pretty good. Came out the swim first by about 10-15 minutes, I think it was, maybe 10 minutes. which is always a great feeling, and you've got that little head start,
Yeah,
breather,
exactly.
you know, to.
The thing with the swim, like the end, that's always the interesting with swimming. The intensity, like, is not that much in reality. In sense
No.
of like the difference between the intense speed of like the double and triple is not exponential. It's a small drop off in reality.
Yeah, I think I dropped off
It was a bit slower.
couple of laps, but I don't think I was as swim fit going into it because we talked about it beforehand.
But I think
on
we
the
did
double,
I think I've got the stats, but we did. I think the swim volume for the year was very similar to the previous year.
Was it? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And mainly, and just for like reference, I guess, is that one of the things we chatted around is the swim becomes even less important. Although it's still important, you need to be swim fit and be able to. And it's, I think one of the big, which we can probably chat into, is the volumes aren't exponentially higher through the double and the triple. It's just that you start to stack more sessions, so you're still doing, because there is only a finite amount of hours that we can realistically consistently do. But yeah, I think that if you look at the swim volume, it stayed fairly similar, but if you look at the duration of sessions, they will be longer.
Yeah, I think going back to the stacking of the sessions, I should have really mentioned that before. What I found a really good way to train and a really efficient way of using time to build the fatigue on the legs especially is to back sessions late at night. So run late at night and then early in the morning.
Yeah.
Run home from work after a full day, 12-hour shift at work on your legs,
and it just
then run home.
It's about 30k run for him to run.
Yeah.
It's not just a 5k run.
But even if it is a 5k run,
Yes.
you're building that fatigue, and then in the morning maybe run to work in the morning, and it's the efficient use of your time.
Yeah.
And also if you're training in the dark, your family are asleep. So you're also it's all to do with people say to me, oh, you must have loads of time off. Well, I have the same amount of time off as anyone else, but respectfully, but it's the way you use that time. Stacking the sessions is so important, I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's double sessions work quite well as well for that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
I always think certainly that is that ability to have a short sleep, like an 8 hour kind of sleep and then back into another session the next day works quite well, because you don't really want to train that. If necessarily it's been a long session, you're a bit fatigued, a bit groggy, that first sort of half hour on the bike or on the run, whatever, feels terrible. That's a bit like what happens when you do these events where you stop for 10-15 minutes and then have to get going again. That initial few minutes is quite hard, so it's good to do that.
But then the confidence builder, because so the first half, for me it's always the first half an hour of the run feels absolutely terrible if I'm stacking sessions, if I'm really fatigued on my legs. But after 30 minutes I get into it, and I know that.
Yeah.
So that when you get onto the run, on a long distance triathlon, your head doesn't go down for the first half an hour or whatever it is for you. You're feeling rubbish, because you're like, well, I'll just have to battle through this 10, 15, 30, what hour maybe of feeling rubbish, and I know it'll get better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's so important to train that. But it all goes down to training to the race, being prepared for what you're going to do.
Yeah, and being creative with it, I think as well is quite important. Alright, so got out the swim on the bike.
Slow transition, probably about 3 hours in transition I think it was. I don't rush.
I think you had one of the fastest transitions.
Full change. I don't mess around with tri-suits and all that sort of stuff. Full change, cycling gear, the most comfy stuff I can get hold of, and then onto the bike. Bike choice maybe wasn't ideal.
Yeah.
It was a pretty stiff setup on the bike. I had an Argon 119 Tri Plus with a disc and a 808 front, which was probably the stiffest setup you can have bar a track bike.
Yeah,
and it was a fairly aggressive setup. Although it was comfortable, it was aggressive, which lended to a fast bike, but also caused a few issues towards going past the 250 mile point. The first 200 odd miles on the bike was fantastic, felt really good. There's a few steep climbs, very steep climbs, which people always said, I bet you regret being on a TT bike now, or I bet you regret, the amount of people that said, I bet you regret having a disc now. It's unbelievable. Which was hard with that bike especially, even though it was, anyway. But there was a lot of long flat sections which definitely made up for it. And if you could stay aero in comfortable aero, it was definitely worth having that bike. I had a few mechanicals on the way, but Johnny was really good at getting them sorted out straight away. The way that the longer distance stuff works is you have bike support. You have to. It's fully supported. It's fully unsupported by the organisers. So you have to have like a support crew. So Johnny sort of met me on various parts of the bike course to make sure I was okay. He was never too far away. I had a few issues that he sorted out. I had a spare bike in the back of the van which we swapped out a few times while he did a few repairs. And then about 250 miles in, I started to struggle with the lack of positions on the bike because the difference between the drops and the TT bars was not as much because of the aggression of the setup. I found it quite difficult climbing on the drops because I was still quite crouched over and I was starting to feel a bit of pain, so I swapped onto a different bike. Unfortunately, on the bike I had a bit of a problem where my undercarriage got a bit numb and I caused a bit of damage to my undercarriage. I didn't really know how bad that was at the time. I knew I'd hurt myself, but I didn't really know the severity of what I'd done because everything was quite numb. So I thought, well, I'm here now, I might as well carry on going. We got to the end of the bike. I think I did have a 10-minute rest off the bike where everyone thought I'd died because I just got off the bike and literally fell onto the grass and lied down in the wet grass for 10 minutes with a dry rope, and it was enough just to reset. I remember being on that lap and thinking, my mind was just going, "Now you need to stop. You need to stop. I don't need to stop. You don't need to give up. You just need to stop for a second."
Yeah.
You know, I was struggling doing the functions that you used to be able to do quite simply. So I just decided, right, that's it. I'm going to stop. So stop. 10 minute lie down. I could still hear everyone. It was very quiet because people were a bit worried about what was going on because I hadn't really explained what I was doing. And then got up, back on the bike, and then did the last 2 laps. I think it was the last 2 laps on a different bike, and it felt all right. I could feel a bit of pain in my groin, which I was a bit concerned about, but it was okay. It was pretty good. Came off the bike pretty happy. Got into transition, full change of clothes again. And that's when I realised that I'd done some pretty bad damage to my bits, and I had a sort of decision to make. I hadn't told anyone really what had happened because I didn't want any more excuse. I want people to tell me to stop. Good idea and everything. I wanted to work out in my own head. So I thought, and then I said to Terry, and I think Terry said, "Oh, do you want to go and see the medic?" And I thought, no, if I go and see the medic, then they'll tell me to stop. So I carried on going. I'll never forget coming out of transition. Callum and I, the first section out of transition is do up Snowdon, and there's a little bit of a run, well, a little bit of a flat section. It wasn't a run at the time, a little bit of a flat section, and before you get to the sort of main climb up to Snowdon, which is quite a steep start at the beginning of the climb up the road, and I had great intentions to run it, but I was in so much pain down below, I couldn't run, and so I was like walking, speed walking. And somebody, a bystander said, "Oh, how far have you got to go?" And Callum said, 78-mile run. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, how is this going to be possible? But I just blanked it out of my head and thought, right, it's Snowdon and 13 laps. That's all it is. So we hiked Snowdon, and the more I got into it, the more my legs started to fire up, and the half-hour point came. Then we did a little bit of running up Snowdon, and we actually climbed Snowdon really well, Callum and I, really well. Got to this top, felt absolutely fantastic, weather was absolutely glorious, and then we ran all the way down, and that got my legs into that running motion.
It's quite a gradual descent.
It's a hard one because it's not steppy, so it's kind of a bit hard on your toes because you're constantly on that toes. But if you let yourself, and it also lends to running. So it lends to increasing the leg speed, which is good for getting into a run because you get that sort of leg speed and you get that laziness out of your legs. Yeah,
it's a different kind of height to what we have here, I guess.
Definitely, yeah. It was a calf buster because your feet are constantly flexed forward. So we went in, got another quick change of clothes once we got off Snowdon, and then started the laps. And by that point, I was fine. I'd managed to blank all the pain out of my mind. And just thought, well, you got 13 laps to do. Let's just go and do it. So we ran, picked up Estera at that point. I think it was the first runner, a support runner, and then we just went to run the laps, 1 lap at a time. Easy peasy. I had a strategy from the year before about points I knew that I was going to walk and points that I knew I was going to run, and I knew that if we stuck to that strategy, then we'd be a similar sort of pace, albeit a little bit slower. Obviously, the volume, the distance. So it was nice just because you're not battling yourself then, and you're not thinking, oh, I need to walk here, I'm failing, or when you've got a plan to run. It's psychologically, you don't feel like you're failing at any point. And something that actually you said to me years ago, I think it was when we first did Keltman, it was just keep moving forward. Just keep moving forward. And that's another thing that I use in my head for these things when things get hard. Just keep moving forward. Just don't stop. Like, even if you're crawling, just move forward, because a lot of people stop when they're tired and when they're fed up. They stop and they have a little rest and they have a talk to themselves. But do that while you walk. Eat while you walk, sleep while you walk if you can. Keep moving forward. And I think if you get that pace and don't slow down, keep moving forward, it really works to compartmentalize it again, because you've got to. These things are so big. You've got to make it to the next foot forward.
Where's the next point?
Exactly.
Like that, right? My next walk point is a mile away. Right, I just need to run for a mile. So.
I did suffer quite a lot of blisters, which was part of the downfall of the whole run, to be honest, because after about 8 laps the blisters started to get a bit unmanageable. So we went down from running the flat sections and walking the hills to a walk run. And that's another thing, we knew it wasn't manageable now to run the whole flat sections, so it was going back to not failing and having a race plan as well, and say, well, when you get to that point, because I suspected I'd get to that point, what are we going to do? Are we going to give up? Are we going to just walk the whole lot? Are we going to cry? What are we going to do? No, we're going to have a walk-run program. And it was Anthony that first said, right, let's go into walk running. And we went from, I think we did 4 minutes running, 2 minutes walking to start with. And we started that, did a lap and a half on that, and then I started to struggle with that, so we went to like 2 and 2, and then 1 and 2, and then you just balance that walk running to make it, but constantly moving forward, never stopping. And then eventually it was walking, because I was just, my mind, I didn't know what was going on. I was struggling standing up, like I was struggling with balance, and it was just a walk for the last sort of lap. It was so kind of difficult.
Well, I think there's, I guess, advantages in some ways, as you had quite a big lead. I think I remember right, you had like the equivalence of like a marathon.
I think I had a 5 hour
4 or 5 laps by the time the second place was gone. So I guess there's an element of that.
I think if it was a race, it would have been hard to. I don't know what I'd have done, to be honest. I don't know how much I could have pushed through that pain, because it was bloody painful.
Then the last run, obviously, then cross finish line.
Then cross the finish line. I managed to run across the finish line, which I'm glad I did, because there's a video of me and I hit a walk across that. It wasn't a pretty run, but it was a walk. It was a run. Felt absolutely amazing. The whole team was there. It was just incredible. Great feeling to have done that, to have completed it. It was fantastic. Brilliant.
It's, so I guess you just touched on a little bit, and like, how do you stay focused and motivated during like the most challenging parts? When you have touched on, I guess, the compartmentalising it.
Yeah, it's all to do with compartmentalising it. Just if you would stand at the start line and say, I'm not going to finish this, we'll go to the finish line until about 50 hours time. You'd just melt into pieces on the swim. Every time it got hard, you think, I can't do this for another 20 hours, I can't do this for another 30 hours. It's just saying, well, all I've got to do is keep moving forward, and doing it at a pace that's maintainable. If you think you're going too fast, you're going too fast. We've all set off on a run and gone, this feels a bit fast. But I'll stick with it. And what happens? You blow it to pieces. In the distance stuff, in the ultra stuff.
I guess the ultra stuff becomes the art of not slowing down more than the art of being fastest. There's people that are faster, but the thing they're generally better at is not slowing down as much. I think
definitely.
Because everybody feels good the first.
It's setting a pace that you can maintain, and that's the key. People were running faster than me, but they were having to stop a lot more. And it's all swings and roundabouts. It's working the mind, training the mind as well. Is when it gets hard, you've put the hours in. You know that your body's capable of it, and it's just your body telling you, it doesn't want to go anymore, you know, and it's a difficult one, isn't it?
But yeah, I think nobody really understands
the link. It's a link of mind and body, but
like
who's talking to who I don't know, but it's separating the two.
Like the brain kind of like is like controlling it all, and it's like it's just making sure that you're not going to do serious damage to yourself.
Yeah.
And it's like, but I think there's an element of once you show the brain that the body's you can keep going.
Well,
are you forced to keep going?
I proved this on the triple because I was quite badly injured, and I just kept going, and I didn't feel any. I knew I was doing myself damage, but I told myself it wasn't a problem, you know.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that's A, stupid, and B, is quite. It's quite an interesting thing to do.
Yeah,
you know, is to be able to do that.
Time, but
No, definitely not. No.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, there's something in that conversation I had with a few people recently as well. It's like that, and I presume it's similar. Like you cross the finish line, and there's obviously that initial. I mean, I guess with the brutal, there's not a lot of people there.
No.
You know, most people are at home and are reflecting on the race yesterday when you're still crossing the finish line. You know, you're 50 hours to finish. And people are doing the double in like 30 something. They're waiting long
I did come past a guy that was just about to finish the double as I was finishing the triple.
That's great. Yeah.
It's a long day.
But yeah, I think there's this, and I'm assuming kind of similar, that you cross that finish line. I think we all experience it. You cross that finish line, and it's like, oh yeah, amazing, and it's just like, and then about half an hour later, you know, probably once you've kind of limped back to the accommodation, it's like that kind of drop off is massive, and you get, and I've seen it with quite a lot of people, where you get that, like the buzz that we expect when we cross the finish line, and certainly when the event's like bigger, and like Ironman, for example, when you cross and it's fans cheering for you and whatnot, it's like very quickly you cross that finish line, and that's like the moment is gone.
Yeah.
It's like you just like the next person's coming, it's their moment, and I think you've got to truly value the enjoyment of the process.
You can't do it for that.
No.
If you're doing it for that,
it's a bit like it's like a drug in a sense. I mean, we are always striving for that moment, but it's like if that's all you are looking for, then you're going to have to keep finding more events to get a bigger buzz from it, and it just keeps crashing at the end. So I think you've got to be right. Why am I doing this? This is truly what I want to do. I enjoy the process, and actually that, and even I guess which was the last bit I really want to focus on was that journey from like the person who was 130 kilos to that moment is quite impressive and quite, I guess, sometimes impossible in the sense of if you were to show that person then this is what you're doing. And Golgan speaks a lot about that kind of thing, and it's quite an interesting journey that you wouldn't have anticipated at the time.
Well, I think that's one of the things that motivates me to train and to race these distances is I was told a lot in the past that you can't do things, you know, that things aren't possible, and especially, you know, if you're heavy or whatever, or you know you can't run very well, you can't swim very well, you can't bike very well. People are too quick to dismiss you as a person, and it's not the case. And to be able to do that, and I've seen other people do it. You know, I'm not the only person that does what I do, and obviously there's people do much bigger things and much longer races or much quicker. There's always another, and that's another thing. There's always another step. You never reach the end. You never get to the end.
More bonkers event,
but it's being told that you can't do something, or telling yourself you can't do something.
Yeah,
you know, saying, "Oh, I can't be as good as I was last year because I was really good last year." You can. You know, you can be just as good. You can be better than you were last year. There's nothing stopping you apart from yourself. Yeah. You know, and don't listen to people when they. And what I find as well is people are really quick to criticize, and it's all. I think sometimes it's like sometimes it's a jealousy thing, is that they'll say, "Oh, I knew that running was bad for you," or you know, that sort of thing. As soon as you get injured, or you know, when you're tired, you know, it's not good for you, all this stuff. And people are constantly trying to knock you down. And it's keeping your head up high and going, I can do this. If I'm 130 kilos, or if I can't run, or if I've never swam before, I can do this super sprint triathlon, or I can do this
5k.
5k. You know, but you might be last. Yeah, you might be last. But A, somebody's got to come last, and you don't know who's going to turn up. Yeah. And B,
what does it matter?
What does it matter? And C, well, next year you might be first.
Yeah.
You know. Got to go out and do these things.
Yeah, I think not being. I mean, someone we did a podcast on a while ago about being afraid of failure. I think that's and like obviously because of like social environment, obviously people's perceptions of what you should and shouldn't be doing is probably sometimes too heavy on our own mind, but it's that, well actually I want to do it, and if I fail or I don't achieve it, actually I'd rather do that than not try at all. And I think
you realise that nobody actually cares how you do. Terry, my wife Terry, she doesn't care if I win or lose.
No,
she just wants me to be as happy as I can
and do the best
I can.
Yeah.
You know, and you're so het up with this letting people down.
The people that truly matter don't really care.
No,
I think
not
that's
at all.
probably the truth.
Not
It's
at
like
all.
the people who are going to judge you for it probably don't matter. You know, I think that's
Exactly.
I guess just
A bit too spiritual.
floating off. So I guess one of the things is, based on what you've learned along the way from where you were to where you are, what advice do you have? I guess you've probably done some of that, but any people who are looking maybe to lose weight and improve their overall fitness, is anything that you would include onto that?
Just try. just give it a go. If you're heavy, join a club. You know, that's that.
Or a group of like-minded people.
Or a group of like-minded people.
Yeah.
You know, that's don't think people are judging you for how you look, because nobody cares. It's only you that cares how you look, really. And the people that are judging you don't matter. But you know, when you go out and do these things, and even now to this day, if I see somebody at the back of a half marathon or a sprint triathlon shuffling their way through the run, I'm not saying, oh, look at them struggling at the back.
Yeah.
I'm saying, look at them,
Well,
putting that effort.
There's more,
You know,
risk for them as well.
the people at the back get the biggest cheer generally.
Yeah.
You know, and yeah, you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. It's just hard. Nothing's easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah, I think sometimes the hardest bit is to outlast the person that you are to be the person that you become.
Yeah, definitely.
I think it's that kind of, like, there's always, where you are just now is the person that you are right now, and it's like you have to consciously make that daily decision or even hourly decision of like do something different that's going to change that trajectory.
And I think they've got a thing at the moment. They've got a thing. I sound old now. What's it called? When you manifesting.
Oh, yeah.
Manifesting. It's something that we've always done, but now we've put a name to it and made it fashionable on Instagram. But that's important as well. Is seeing what's and imagining yourself in that position, and you will get there. You know, if you can only imagine yourself sat on the sofa, you know, eating chocolates and crisps and not going out and getting active, then that's how you're probably going to be.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine yourself doing it, I'm not going to get too Instagram on you, but
well,
yeah,
no, I know,
you know,
big moving like stuff.
But we've always done that. Now we're putting it.
I think it's like the way I always personally look at it. It's that it's like you're Picasso, and actually the masterpiece is you, and you're painting the picture that you want it to look like. So, and it's like, I think that's having that vision in your head of right, this is where I am trying to get to, and be almost like crazy with it. Like the level is like unattainable and it's like unrealistic, and it's this incredible piece of art that you're going to work on. Might take you 6 months, might take you 12 years, you might never complete it, and you probably won't in reality, and I think that's
but you're going to have a journey getting there.
Yeah, and you're going to be closer to something than what you are. And I think a book I've just read recently from Rick Rubin about like the art of creativity, and it was quite an interesting one. There's a lot of stuff in that relating to art and more like music and art in general, but I think it ties a lot of good quotes with life, and it is just speaking about that. It's like you might just start off with like throwing loads of things at the wall, seeing some of them stick, the ideas, right, I want to do triathlon, actually no, I don't want to do triathlon, I want to go and do ultra cycling, or I want to go and do other stuff, or I want to just go and learn to ski, whatever it is. You keep throwing all these different ideas, try all these different things, and when one of them sticks, and like you say, for you it was triathlon, and for me it was triathlon as well, it's that actually, this is what I want to do, I want to focus more on that, and then you maybe pull that idea and start to branch into more detail with it. But I think at the moment is a lot of people aren't throwing enough stuff at the wall to find one. You know, you might not want to do triathlon, the thought of doing one might not be the thing that motivates you, just because someone you know does one isn't necessarily a good guide or a good reason for doing it. But do lots of different stuff, go to different events, go to different clubs, go to different sports or whatever. But I think, as Matt says, it's that just make a decision that you want to go after it or you want to do something different, and you'll find that you'll probably get good progress regardless of where you end up.
Definitely.
Cool. I think that's pretty much everything. Anything else for you to add? I guess there was a few questions that came in from when we did a post on Instagram, which was the hardest. So this is related to the triple. Which was the hardest, the swim, the bike, or the run?
That's tricky, isn't it?
It's hard to do because the run.
It's got to be the run because it was last. If the bike was last, that would have been the hardest.
Swim last. That's a new event. Yeah, do maybe not 70-mile run, but swim after biking and running. Jesus.
You know what? Probably the last few weeks of training.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're almost there, but you're not there.
Yeah. But no, in honesty, it was the run. It was the last marathon. It's a long way to go when you've already done 50 odd miles and you've got a marathon left. It's just a long way to go. It's only 26 miles.
It's only one more step.
Exactly. So probably the run in honesty.
But I guess that's because of the order of it.
Or eating.
Yeah,
nutrition.
Nutrition is quite.
That was the blooming hardest thing. That was very,
so
very
what generally
difficult.
did you use for nutrition?
We should have put this as a point earlier on.
No.
So I don't use any. Training. I don't use any sports things. So I don't use any gels. I don't even use that many electrolytes and stuff like that. I use completely natural stuff. So I'll have sandwiches, flapjacks, chocolate biscuits, stroop waffles, just things that are like high carb volume, but also got the rest of the stuff in it. I find the other stuff, as soon as you start eating too much of it can have a real effect on your body, on your guts. So I went to Aldi before race day, before we went down to Wales, and I just basically shoveled all the sort of all the sweet stuff, and then all the bready stuff, and then we had sort of like rice pudding, a lot of porridge, stuff like that. And it's great to eat to start with. I was fine, I also use Tailwind, which is fantastic. I'm not sponsored by Tailwind, but it's really, really good.
Sure,
there's other drinks available, and that was a great way to get like extra carbs in without really trying. So I use that for the swim, so you could just take half a bottle of Tailwind each lap, or 2 laps, and then on the bike to supplement the sort of food. When I got onto the run, I can't remember what I was eating, but I do remember there was a message that went out to the support crew saying Matt's coming round next lap, and somebody said, what does he want to eat? And he said, okay, he doesn't want anything sweet, he doesn't want anything savoury, he doesn't want anything liquid, he doesn't want anything solid, he doesn't want anything brown, he doesn't want anything white, he doesn't want anything, and he just left a big long list of what I don't want. It was really difficult. I just had to force food down me. That was probably the most difficult thing, because you can't train that either.
No, that's just
you just can't train the nutrition to that level.
It's I guess on race day, you just have to adapt and overcome.
Yeah, definitely.
Someone asked what motivates you. I think we've kind of got to that. I guess it's that motivation.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Kind of proving things wrong, people wrong.
Well, not so much proving people wrong. That sounds like you're doing it for other people. I don't do it for other people. It's showing that it's possible.
Yeah, okay.
I think more so.
Did you hallucinate at all? I know who that one came from on the run.
I did hallucinate on the run once. Last couple of laps, I went for a pee, and I swear to God, there was a giant spider. And the weirdest thing about it was, in my head, it was a giant spider, but I wasn't scared of this giant spider. I just took one step. The Anthony I was running with at the time, I took one step back, and Anthony was like, "You're right." I was like, "Yeah, there's a giant spider on the giant by about 3 foot high," and it wasn't. It was a bush.
The story would have been funny. We'd stop for a pee and you'd seen a 3-inch snake there.
Well, that's a different story altogether.
We'll edit that out, maybe. Someone's asked about the injury. I don't think we want to go into that, not because it's coming up for lunchtime. I guess someone asked just why. Personally for me, although it's not something that I plan ever to do, but I guess why not is always my answer to, like, if you perceive, and we said that before, like that perception, if you believe it's possible, then that's the reason you should do it.
Yeah, as well, I think it opens your mind when you start doing these things. You start realising that, when you do a sprint triathlon, you look at standards and you go, wow, it's such a fun way. And you do standards and you go half, and you're like, oh wow, halves. And you meet people at halves that have done fulls and you go, wow, I can't imagine doing a full. And it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Then you go out to the doubles and triples and you realise that it's insane. The amount of things are out there that people are doing every day. It's just absolutely insane. You meet people that have done mad things. I met a guy who'd done 105 Ironmans back to back, which is insane. It was just great. And everyone's so friendly. And it's
they're always a bit nuts.
And they've always got big beards and funny hats. Which I love. But to go back to the injury, although I'm not going into much depth, what I will say is is how that felt afterwards. There was a real downer for me because it took the edge. I was quite ill afterwards. I was in and out of hospital quite a bit, and I got quite a bad infection, and it really took the edge off the race. And I remember when Kevin told me he wanted to do this thing, I said to Terry, we were out walking at the time, and I said I don't know what to say to him because all I can think of is negatives. And it was amazing, and that was for about a month. All I could think of was negatives about the race, and I didn't even want to put the trophy up. I wasn't interested in anything. I didn't. It was a really strange time, and I don't get like that after races, and I've heard that people do, and I've sort of always like not brushed it off, but thought, you'll get over it type thing. But it was hard. It was really hard to see happiness out of what had happened, and people would say, yeah, but you won, and I was like, yeah, but I don't care. I can't do anything. I can't walk. I can't. I feel I've gone from being the fittest I've ever been to being lying in bed for 4 weeks. It's not. It was absolutely horrendous. But Terry was really good, and other friends and family, and you do get out of it. You start feeling better. And now I'm back to swimming and back to running. And even that first swim after a month and a half off, it was horrendous. I couldn't swim 1500 metres. Going from swimming 6 to 8k sets we used to do beforehand to not be able to swim 1500 metres, it's a real blast here. But I was like, you know what, you've got to start somewhere. Right, let's go. And and you just get back to it, and you shouldn't let that. I think a lot of people let that really grind them down, and you shouldn't. Yeah,
I think there's almost sometimes we take it for granted. Is probably that, isn't it? You just like. You're used to swim out running, you've done the swim out running, now you can't. And I think part of it is because it becomes part of our life. It's like, it's kind of, I guess, part of who we are in a sense. We swim, bike, run, we do these sports, and then that's like taken away from you. And that's why I think people get like depressed or like mental health issues with injury, because it's that kind of like it's taking away part of them. And I think you've almost got to go, right, what do I...
And it's the derailment. We had all these plans after the event, right, we're going to catch up with this because we've missed out on so much stuff. We're going to go on a holiday overseas, and we're going to do this, that and the other. And all of a sudden you have to cancel everything because you're not well, and that goes back to being flexible with the way. And my mind wasn't flexible the last few months, and it was difficult for me. But the next time I race, I'll know what to expect and be able to,
But hopefully you don't have the same issue.
Well, no, but if you do, and it's more than possible to not for that. But anyway.
Good. I think that's just about everything. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed that, and you're not fast asleep. If you're fast asleep, it must be Matt's Gordon. No, hopefully everybody enjoyed that. It was more just a kind of informal chat through the race and get some feedback from Matt. And it's good lessons learned. I think there's hopefully some good kind of insight into that, and maybe some motivation for other people to hopefully not do something daft like a triple or a double. But people take on their own challenges. Whether it's a sprint, it doesn't have to be an event that's going to take you 2 days to make it kind of motivating. If it's a challenge for you, then it's worth doing. And hopefully that's good. And any people got any comments or other questions, we can happily put them to Matt at any point. And hopefully.
And if you ever see me in like the pool or out running or anything like that, feel free to chat, because I like to chat a bit too much sometimes, if I'm honest.
Buy him a coffee. Right, thanks everybody for listening. Hope we see you soon.